All right, guys, welcome back. Look who we have here. We have a special guest on today's Fan Talk episode. Again, Fan Talk. This is me, Kyle Brinchley, back in the house. Your favorite podcast by your favorite fan. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and now I am on Amazon Music. So go look me up. I'm joined here by my good friend Jack Scott. He is the college basketball expert, so I figured I had to bring him in order to get down to business and tackle the NCAA tournament. But first, shout out to my candle. I got a tropical scent today because it is literally 70 degrees outside. Kind of crazy, but that's just spring for you. Some days it's raining, some days it's 70 degrees. And then, of course, Rogue One poster, new Acolyte trailer just dropped. I'm excited. It's looking real good. But let's waste no more time. Let's jump right in, Jack. We are going to the games. They're having some games in Salt Lake City tomorrow. 4-game slate that we're going to go check out and get some really good matchups. I'm actually excited. I think each of these matchups is very intriguing in their own way. Obviously, kind of how the cookie crumbles. We get Arizona with the 2 seed versus 15 seed Long Beach State. And let's start here. Let's start with Long Beach State. Dan Monson, their coach, literally got fired. Literally, he got let go. They're like, okay, you're done. And it's so weird. I've been noticing this. A couple of coaches have been let go right after games, and then they have to go do a press conference and be like, yeah, I just got fired. And it's like, could you not wait until the next morning or till after the press conference? It just makes for a really awkward thing. But he has. Go ahead.
And Utah State coach.
Yes, yeah, that happened to Utah State's women's coach too. Have made for a very awkward press conference because, I mean, nobody was expecting it. So, I mean, I don't know what teams are doing there, but to each their own. But yeah, Long Beach State, they won their conference tournament. They're in. Dan Monson, technically fired, but still has a job and has an opportunity to win a tournament game. When was the last time that ever happened? Probably never.
I don't remember a time. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. They're playing an Arizona team that a lot of people don't have a lot of faith in. What are your thoughts on Arizona, Jack?
So Arizona's an interesting team. Very inconsistent all year, but at the beginning they were very good. They beat a lot of good teams. That's really kind of boost their seed. But they lost to Oregon in their Pac-12, so I feel like they're one of those teams that is a wild card. They can go all the way or lose in the first round like they did last year.
That is a good point. They were a 2 seed last year, and they ended up losing to Princeton, if I remember correctly. And yeah, that was a crazy game.
I picked them last year to win it all in first round.
So I think a lot of people did last year.
I know, and the year before they were a 1 seed. The year before I picked them, they get bounced in the Sweet 16. So they're a team that in recent tournaments are kind of a weird team. They got Caleb Love this year, so we'll see what happens. They always have talent, but it seems like they never put it together.
Yeah, you make a good point. They do have some good players, and I did watch them a few times throughout the year, and they played some good games and looked pretty good at some points during the season. But it might just be another case of not showing up come tournament time. I mean the same thing with Purdue. Like, Purdue looks dominant all year. The last 3 years they haven't made it past the round of 32. Last year, of course, being upset by 16 seed Farley Dickinson. So who knows what will happen? I've made a lot of brackets through the ESPN bracket challenge.
Yeah.
I think I've made like 9, and I think in 8 of them I do have Arizona winning this game, but I do have one where I'm picking Long Beach State just because it wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't.
Yeah. You never know with March Madness. I mean, Long Beach State's not great, but you never know, right?
Absolutely.
Arizona, don't know about them, man.
A lot of question marks there for sure. Let's see. The next game, it's Nevada and Dayton. Now, I have some thoughts on both these teams, and maybe you do as well. First, Dayton, kind of interesting that they got a 7 seed They
Hmm.
lost in the first round of the Atlantic 10 tournament. They actually lost to Duquesne, the team that
Yeah,
it ended up winning it all and got in. And it's kind of interesting that they lost and ended up getting a 7 seed. They did have a fairly good record. They only lost 7 games during the year, but I think they were seeded a little too high. I think yeah. At the end of the day, they probably deserve to be in, but I think they probably should have been a 10 seed. I almost wonder if you should have flipped Nevada and Dayton because Nevada
that
actually had a really good year.
I
Um,
think would have been at minimum a 7. I thought they could have been a 6 seed because they're a red hot team in the Mountain West. Which the Mountain West, I just want to shout out this: New Mexico just crushed Virginia last night. I think hopefully the Mountain West can prove the committee wrong because it feels like everyone besides San Diego State got underseeded in the Mountain West. So we'll see, I guess, right?
well, absolutely. I mean, Utah State, they were the in-season outright champion. They ended up only getting an
Yeah.
8 seed. Nevada was the in second place. They got a 10 seed. And then of course, we saw Colorado State and then Boise State will play tonight. Both of them got 10 seeds. And New Mexico, they weren't even going to get in unless they won obviously the Mountain West tournament and they ended up getting an 11 seed. So you are right. I think that a lot of teams not getting the respect they deserve in the Mountain West. This is a game where I think Nevada can really prove themselves. I think to the untrained eye, a lot of people will view this as an upset if Nevada wins, even though I feel like Nevada, might just be as good of a team as Dayton. Like I said, I think they maybe should have flipped the seeds there. But I mean, Nevada's playing hot. They finished their last 8 games. They went 7-1, and that only loss was in the Mountain West tournament. So I think out of my 9 brackets, I think in 7 of them, 6 or 7 of them, I've picked Nevada. So I'm kind of leaning towards Nevada for sure. But it could be a good game. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to bag on Dayton by any means. I just think they're seated a little too high, but still a good team. Should be a good matchup.
Yeah.
Let's see. The next game,
Like,
I think
uh,
I think is it Kansas and Samford that's next?
no, it's Gonzaga McNeese that's before it.
Gonzaga McNeese. Okay.
So yeah, Gonzaga's a team. We all know Gonzaga. They're always in the tournament, but I think they're overseeded at 5. It's not been the typical Gonzaga year. Then you look at a McNeese team. How I think they've only lost like 3 games this year. So this is a popular upset here. I mean, you can't count out the Bulldogs ever in the NCAA tournament, but I think it's obviously a classic 12 over 5. I think this one we could see an upset. I'm predicting an upset. McNeese has got really solid guards. They've ran through their conference really all year. They've stumbled on it 3 games, but really have never stumbled to the point where you kind of lose confidence in them. I think they're a very good team here, and I think they'll probably beat Gonzaga.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched a lot of McNeese State, and I think a lot of the country hasn't, just because they're never really on national television. But I do subscribe to this idea that they're gonna upset this Gonzaga team. I do agree Gonzaga probably should be in the tournament, but probably not a 5 seed. Again, probably should have been a higher seed, or I guess a lower seed. But I think in some of my brackets I actually have McNeese State in the Sweet 16. Not just beating Gonzaga, but moving on into the Sweet 16. I always make one bracket every year that is purely upsets, and I actually have McNeese State winning it all. I think I have them beating. Who do I have them beating? I don't even remember. I think I have them beating another 12 seed just in that fun bracket just for kicks and gigs. But again, should be a good game. Don't count out Gonzaga just because we think they're overrated. Still a good team. This is their 25th straight appearance in the NCAA tournament, which is incredible if you think about it. I think they're tied with Michigan State for the most consecutive appearances. So, I mean, hands down to them for making it every single year. Should be a fun game.
Yeah. I also have them in my Sweet 16 because our next matchup, Kansas Samford. I mean, if you don't know Kansas, they're a weird team right now. Hunter Dickinson out of their Big 12 tournament. They get crushed by like 20 to Cincinnati. They've lost, I believe, 4 of the past 6 games, starting with the game against BYU. Don't know if you watched that one, but that was a wild one. As a BYU fan, that was a good one. But yeah, I mean, Kansas, again, very similar to Gonzaga. Like, can you really count out Kansas in the NCAA tournament? It's pretty tough. But Samford is a team that's 29-5. I think they probably deserve to be a 12 seed. You know, very good team in their conference, ran through their tournament. I think it was actually a pretty close game in their championship, but in the Southern Conference, they did pretty good. I mean, Kansas, again, I think this is an upset. I think there's always a 13-4 every year. I think Vermont could upset Duke, but this one has the best chance, the way Kansas has been playing. What do you think of this one?
Well, I agree. I think Kansas definitely took a big step back this year, even though they were the 4 seed, even though they were near the top of the Big 12 again. Obviously, the big news out of Kansas is that Kevin McCullough Jr. is going to be out.
Yeah.
He's one of their best players, and this Kansas team's not very deep. If you look at their roster, they really only play, 7 guys, maybe 8 if they're really desperate. And now that McCullough's out, they're gonna need some help. I don't know if it's gonna happen. They might win this first game against Samford, but if they do, I don't see them really going much further than the round of 32. They're just not a deep team, and they ended the season on a terrible note. Got blown out in the Big 12 tournament. Yeah, they didn't have Dickinson, but still, like, you can't lose by 20 and be like feel good about yourself entering the March Madness tournament.
Yeah, Cincinnati's not the cream of the crop either. They're like what is 11s. So
yeah, they were near the bottom of the Big 12.
Like I said, though, can you really count out Bill Self and the Jayhawks in the tournament? I mean, it's for sure a question to ask, but there's a lot of those teams like Kansas, Gonzaga, or Michigan State, teams like those that always show up in the tournament, but they're having a little bit of down years.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that Kansas, I don't think this is their season to do it, especially with McCullough out. I mean, he's their player. And again, Sam,
big blow.
Good 13 seed as well.
Yeah, well, quick shout out from Samford, Rylan Jones, hometown kid. He's from Utah. Started his career at Utah, then transferred to Utah State, and now he's doing, I think it's his 5th year. He's exercising that over at Samford. So kind of cool that he gets to play in front of a bunch of locals back in his home state. I'll definitely be rooting for Samford. I did pick them in a couple brackets, but also I'm just not a fan of Kansas being, an Oklahoma fan. Kansas has always beat us every single year, so should be a fun one. Hoping for a potential upset in this game as well.
I know. I think we got some good games in our region. I think we could see some chaos.
Absolutely, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
Speaking of chaos, let's talk about the BYU Cougars getting a 6th seed and facing Duquesne. Now, in my last episode, I was like, Duquesne, like, bet you guys don't even know where Duquesne is. Duquesne came out of nowhere, somehow won their conference tournament, got in as an 11 seed. I don't even know where to begin with Duquesne. Like, they're playing, obviously they had a hot tournament, but I really don't know if they're that good. What are your thoughts as they match up against the BYU Cougars? They play tomorrow. 10:40 tip?
Yeah, one of the second game to begin. But Duquesne's an interesting team. I agree with you. They probably don't deserve to be a 12 seed. I would have gave it to either James Madison, Grand Canyon, or McNeese State, who we just were talking about. But yeah, Duquesne's a team that started out 0-5 in their conference. Just 5 losses in a row, or not playing good. Since then, I believe they've only lost 3 games since then. So, a red hot team. Go in, beat Dayton, who we obviously just talked about. They're in the tournament right now. So those are the two teams from the A10 in the tournament. They're playing BYU, which I've watched BYU all year. I know my team's strength and weaknesses. They're one of those teams that if you look at BYU, they're night by night of what you're gonna get. They live and die by the three. So if they are hitting their 3-point shots, which they're one of the best in the country at that, they can beat just about anybody. But if they're not, they could very much get upset by Duquesne in this game.
Yeah, and we've seen that throughout the year. BYU's hot shooting has really carried them to some good wins. You know, you mentioned earlier that win against Kansas, one of the biggest ones of the season, probably the biggest one of the season. I do agree with you. I think especially in this game against a Duquesne team that is interesting, potentially could make some noise, but probably won't. I think BYU has a good shooting night against Duquesne and gets on to the round of 32 pretty easily. I think that's a pretty. I think BYU's. I know they wanted a 5 seed, a higher seed, but I think if you're sitting there at the 6th seed and you draw Duquesne, I don't think you have too much to complain about, honestly.
Yeah. Duquesne's. I think you're a little bit disrespecting Duquesne, but I think they're better than some of these 12 seeds out there. Yeah, I think we did deserve a 5 seed, but like you said, I mean, I think also in effect they were probably going to get a 5 seed if they were able to play on Sundays, but they can't, obviously, because of BYU. So I think that also came to an effect of them getting a 6, which Duquesne's probably an easier matchup, but then if they have to play Illinois in the next round, that's a very difficult matchup. Yeah. Right there. So we'll be cheering for Morehead State.
Yes. Well, one game at a time, as we know with March Madness. Yeah. You win in advance, and that's the most important thing. Real quick, I want to show. So here's my my brackets here. I usually make a couple just because I think there's more room for. I don't know. There's just so much that can happen. Personally, this first one here, I have UConn winning it all. Personally, I don't think UConn will. And the reason I say that is because it's been 2006, 2007 was the last time there was a back-to-back champion that someone repeated, and that was Florida that did it. And of course, UConn won it last year. And typically, at least in recent history, 1 seeds haven't had the best of luck. As we talked about, Purdue obviously went down last year in the first round. Last year in the Final Four, there wasn't even 1 seed featured. Mm-hmm. And so UConn, sitting here as the 1 seed, has me a little worried just because of what history has said. That 1 seeds typically don't do as well as projected, and of course there hasn't been a back-to-back in 18 years. So that's why I've made a couple different brackets. Obviously you can see here I have UConn winning 1, Houston winning 1, Auburn, North Carolina, McNeese State, Iowa State, and Baylor. Just spreading out the love. But as of right now, call it right now. And I know you have a video that you put out projecting the entire field, but if you were to guess right this very second, who's kind of your favorite to win it all?
Yeah, so I only make one bracket every year because that's just how I do things, I guess. But yeah, UConn obviously can win it all. I mean, I think they have the toughest region. I actually have them going down to Auburn. Auburn's playing great basketball as well, and just because of the things you listed as well, I just think things aren't adding up for UConn this year to win it. I'm actually going for the second number 1 seed, Houston. I feel like people are going to be down on them because they just got shellacked to Iowa State in their Big 12 championship. I feel like this Houston team can learn from that. You know, you don't want to be too hot going into the tournament, I think. I think you want to take a step back and, figure things out, then go on a run. And honestly, I think their path sets up very well. Maybe Wisconsin can make noise to them. But, you look at Marquette, I don't think they're going to do anything. Kentucky, I mean, they're a high scoring team, but I think that Houston probably would beat them. And then you get into the Final Four, I think Houston does come out on top with the way things shake out for me.
Houston, very good team. They only lost, what, 3 games all year? Was it 3 games?
Yeah,
3 or 4?
4 games if you're including Iowa State, I believe. Or
Which,
is
I mean,
that correct?
very, very impressive for any team in any conference, but especially coming out of the Big 12 where it's literally a
Yeah.
bloodbath every night, with Kansas and Iowa State and BYU and Baylor in there. So, I mean, I do agree. I do have Houston in one bracket. I wouldn't say I'm rooting for Houston necessarily, but of the 1 seeds, I think Houston is kind of my favorite, just because, I mean, Purdue's kind of been there. North Carolina's obviously been there forever, and then UConn already won it last year, so Houston would be a nice, breath of fresh air if we're talking 1 seeds. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think Purdue. I mean, if I'm going from rooting for, I honestly think Zach Edey deserves it. The things he's been through the past few or couple, I think he's been there 3 years. This is his third, and he obviously last year and then a couple years ago lost to double-digit seeds. So I think Purdue deserves it. I think that probably would be my. I don't have them in the Final Four, but if I think they could obviously figure things out and go on this run.
Well, there you go. Yep, good team. We'll see what happens tomorrow. The madness officially begins, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Jack, you have your own YouTube channel. You want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, go search up Scott Sports. I'm probably not going to be uploading as much now that the bracket's done. I'll probably do some mock drafts with NFL, maybe an NBA playoff video, but because we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, the main part of my channel's like kind of done with since the bracket. I did like all of the conference tournament predictions videos, all that stuff.
Yeah, Jack's been working real hard. Go check out his channel. He did conference predictions, of course, and then he followed bracketology every time it was released. He is the college basketball man, and we are so grateful that he joined us today here on the podcast. Thank you all for listening and or watching wherever you get your podcasts. I'm also on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. And stay tuned next week for some more awesome content. Go watch some March Madness. Get your brackets in probably by tonight so you do not forget. Again, the first game tips off about 10:15. I think it's Mississippi State and Michigan State. So stay tuned for some awesome college basketball and the craziness of March. All right, guys, that is all. We'll see you later.